But we start with the Giants. And big guy, this is your time to shine. So take a deep breath, get that heart rate ready. Because whether or not you want to call the Giants from last year and Dayball's first year, Jared, over their skis, there were some positive signs. They were 9-7-1. The statistical profile showed they weren't as good as their record would indicate. So regression obviously is expected. You see a 9-win team knocked down to 7.5 as far as the season win total. Under is actually juiced to $1.20. They won 6 games decided by 7 points or less. So maybe some luck there. A -6 as far as the point differential. They were 21st in Football Outsiders DVOA. So I'm just giving you reasons as to why people are expecting a bit of a regression. I'm sorry, I don't see it. I think they've had a really good offseason. I think Dayball gets comfortable in year 2. We can talk about Daniel Jones, who took a step forward. The assumption was that's it. That's kind of the ceiling, but I think that's naive. A career best as far as completion percentage for the quarterback, yards, pass rating, interception percentage, which his interception percentage was the best in the NFL. So that's a lot of words. Why don't we start? This is going to be 2 segments, boys. So both of you are going to have plenty of time. You can interrupt me as well. But Jared, we'll start with you. And before you start breaking down specific positions, let's look back to last year and then apply it to this year. Let's go with the Giants.
Yeah, so the first thing I noticed, and how do we quantify what a coach means to a team? Well, wins and losses help, but there's a lot of nuance involved there. Specific offensive coaching and play calling and efficiency. That was the biggest year-over-year improvement that I noticed from the Giants of 2 years prior, pre-Brian Daboll, to last year. So third down avoidance, which means to me, first and second down efficiency, not having to worry about third downs. The Giants went from 31st to 6th in that category last year. That is an incredible year-over-year improvement. And red zone conversion rate, going from dead last, 32nd, to the year before Brian Daboll, to 7th last year. So if you want to look at 2 categories that to me show the impact, quantifying an impact that a coach has getting your team in and out of the right things, Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka, OC, head coach, those 2 categories to me are just night and day. Now, they won a lot of close games last year. And that to me is a little bit worrisome. 8-4-1 in one-score games. And 4 of their first 5 wins came in games that they trailed at halftime. That's a very hard rate to sustain because they also just went 2-7 against teams that finished with a winning record. So I am very bullish on the Giants because I believe in Brian Daboll, and I think Daniel Jones now looks like he can operate an offense, and they did make a lot of nice additions. But there are some things in the close game category and comeback category that tell you, okay, this is why I think the win total probably is where it is.
Wonderful metrics. Love third down, love the red zone efficiency-wise. Kafka, he's brilliant. He's going to get a head coaching job. Yeah. He eventually is going to obviously get one of the 32. And last year, I think they may have lost him during the offseason, but I think he stuck around because he likes what's happening there. Dayball is a guy that everybody kind of gravitates for. He's a galvanizer. Big guy. We'll get to the defense. If you missed it earlier today, Isaiah Simmons for a 7th rounder. Wink Martindale is going to have so much fun. Nobody blitzed by a long shot more than this Giants team. I think that was out of weakness up front. I think the team's better up front this year. They won't have to blitz as much, although Wink does. Let's put the defense over here. Big guy, we now come back to you. Original part of the show. You were about to dig into the offense. What do you like?
I think they're good. No. So the thing about the Giants offense last year is despite not having the ponies to run the race, they were innovative, they were inspiring, and they were constantly evolving. Like, it was a very creative offense that you didn't know what you were getting week to week from them. And I think that was one of the biggest things, was that they kept a lot of teams on their heels, and they couldn't figure out how they were going to approach stopping this offense. Obviously, Daniel Jones's legs make a difference. Obviously, Saquon Barkley, while you and I aren't big running back guys, Patrick, he is vital to this offense's success with his ability to catch the ball and make big plays and pick up big chunks. But I think a lot of that was out of necessity a year ago. When you look at what they did with the receivers they had, Darius Slayton, who missed some time, Richie James, Isaiah Hodgins, those were your three leading receivers. Isaiah Hodgins was picked up off the scrap heap. He played 8 games. He had the 3rd most receiving yards on the team a season ago. The offensive line last year was okay. Neal on the right side looking more like a guard than a tackle, which could be an issue. But I think the way they scheme things up, the O-line can be average and they can still be an offense that moves the ball up and down the field. The hardest thing about the Giants a year ago was not just did they win a bunch of really close one-score games, but when it came time for the true tests to play the elite of the elites, right? The teams that were really good last year. You got Dallas, you got Philly, you got Detroit. They couldn't hang. They were not in the same ballpark. And I think they made moves this past offseason to get them to that next level where I don't know if they're there yet, but that gap has definitely been closed.
Great job. Let's stick with the offense. I just wrote down earlier today, wide receiver, do they have a true one? I'm not sure, but they've got options. You mentioned Slayton, Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard, yes, ACL. Wan'Dale Robinson coming off the ACL, but your favorite in Jalen Hyatt, cheat code at Tennessee. It could be exciting, but we haven't even discussed, Jared, so I'll start with you here, Darren Waller. The
Huge.
early returns that Jones is enamored with Waller. If Waller is healthy, I don't want to say this team's a Super Bowl team. Okay, I'll back up a little bit. If Waller is healthy, this team could be special. I'm sorry. I truly believe that because he is a difference maker.
Yeah, I think everyone is searching for the Travis Kelce effect. I think the one thing that the Chiefs have done is they've made that position a viable number 1 receiver option now. And I know there's been a lot of really good number 1 tight ends in years past. Tony Gonzalez was
and
probably
Kafka
the first
knows
one
how to work with the tight end. Sorry to interrupt you, but
100%.
Kafka, that's a Chief guy right there.
And I do think you are going to see a lot of similar concepts to what Travis Kelce does, where they will get him the ball in space. And we don't hear that often with the tight end, but I think he has those unique abilities to get open. And again, it all boils down to the brain trust. And if you trust Daniel Jones to be the trigger man, if that's the case, there is not any reasonable mind can say the Giants' weapons this year are night and day compared to last year. We haven't mentioned Saquon Barkley's name yet. So I just think there are a lot of more options this year. It's all about how it comes together. The offensive line is a concern. Listen, they were bottom 5 in pass block, run block, win rate last year. Like, that needs to be better because Daniel Jones, under pressure, the metrics drop off dramatically. It's his run game that's going to be, I think, the X factor. But there is not a doubt in my mind that the Giants have more toys in the toy chest this year. It's just about how they use them.
Dustin Swedelson, you were better year 2 in your job. A teacher's better year 2 in their job. A head coach is better year 2 in their job. A quarterback's better year 2 in a system. Jones had a consistent system until now, turning it over again with Daboll. I think Daboll is going to be a superstar. I think Jones is underrated. The numbers were awesome. The interception percentage, like I mentioned, was the best in the NFL. Let's go to Jones last minute here, and then we'll come back, talk defense and gambling implications. I don't know where you were. You were wishy-washy on Daniel Jones, although it was Shermer. It was Judge. Judge is a legit clown. The coach that was coaching, he got himself fired in a press conference in the post game. He's a clown. There's grown-ups in the room now. Where are you on Jones?
You know, you and I were on the air when he was drafted, and you yelled at me for how much I hated the pick of Daniel Jones. And I think at the time I said he at best is a Case Keenum, Ryan Tannehill type quarterback. And I have to say he's definitely more than that. Like, his athleticism is legit. And the problem for Daniel Jones has not been Daniel Jones, as you pointed out. He went through Joe Judge and Pat Shermer, the donkiest of donks to ever donk in the NFL. Like, it's really tough.
You didn't mention Ben McAdoo's name either, and that was pre-Daniel Jones.
Yeah, so
it's been a rough stretch for the Giants.
Look, I think a general betting philosophy, bet on coaches, franchises, and even college programs going from year 1 to year 2. They will make their biggest jumps. So I'm intrigued.
Okay, we'll continue. The draft, free agency, defense, and gambling implications this year with the Giants. I think they're undervalued. The regression is, as far as the market, seemingly coming. It's ominous, right? The statistical profile, as we mentioned with the Giants, didn't add up. So We're expecting that 9-7-1 to come back a little bit, 7.5 in the market to make the playoffs over at DraftKings for the Giants. It's plus 160. I'm missing something here. Isaiah Simmons traded to help Wink Martindale. I mentioned, Jared, that he blitzed more than anyone in the NFL last year. I don't think that's sustainable. Kayvon Thibodeau, obviously they helped the defensive front. The draft got A's across the board.
Yeah.
Banks, the Maryland cornerback, should step in right away and help him. The center out of Minnesota, we talked about Jalen Hyatt. Again, you both mentioned Evan Neal. That's another year, second year. I think he gets better. Andrew Thomas, the offensive line, step forward. These are all positives, right? The weapons, we were discussing during the break how electric Wan'Dale Robinson is. If it, ACL is better. Sterling Shepard, who's been out, feels like forever with the ACL. They do have talent. I'm going to say this. The NFC is weak. That's like, if you just look at it as a conference, the NFC is weak, and at plus 160 a team, I'm not expecting them to win the division. It's brutal, but I do expect this to be a wild card team in the Giants, Jared.
I agree, and I think they spent some money in the offseason too, Okereke and Robinson, right? You know, and this is a defense that actually finished with the third highest adjusted games lost to injury last year. So if you expect some positive defensive injury regression, again, they went out and spent some money. They just brought in what some would say is a very interesting, let's say, chessboard piece with Isaiah Simmons. I have no idea where he's going to be deployed, but I can tell you that Wink Martindale's defense is aggressive, and I think that fits his style. The Giants blitzed more than any team in the league last year, and they had the fewest missed tackles of any team in the league last year. They're aggressive. They're a good fundamental defense. They might not have the top-tier talent, especially in the secondary, that a lot of really good defenses covet. But I do think Wink Martindale's, let's call it chaos theory, might mask some of that. Now, there's some volatility there, so you would expect positive but also negative results when you do have that kind of a blitzing scheme. But there's definitely an arrow pointed up. I think this line, honestly, I honestly do think the win total is a well-set number, and I think the schedule matters a little bit. I think the division they play in matters a little bit. We expect Washington to be better. We think Philly's the best team in the conference, obviously the best team in the division. Unsure about Dallas. We could probably argue about how good Dallas is. Maybe that's the second ladder, the second rung of the ladder. The Giants can overcome that. But I think the line's well set, but I definitely think there's a lot of reasons to be very optimistic about the Giants season.
I expected you, Dustin, to be more defensive as far as how this team's being discussed. I mean, we can come up with a trio that's better than Daboll, Kafka, and Martindale. There's not going to be many. I keep on repeating myself with the year two. The roster's better this year.
Yeah.
Okay, 9 wins last year. A lot of it close games. I get it. Jared brought up a great point, trailing at the half. Some of it's going to be luck. There's going to be a reversal, regression. We're going to see it with Minnesota as well. Not going to win 13 games, but I think they're better than most believe. Dustin, I expect you to be more defensive for your G-men.
Yeah, here's why. The issue isn't them. The issue is not the Giants. I think the Giants improved drastically. I think they made a lot of great moves. I think they're going to be a better football team than they were a year ago. The schedule is brutal. There are a few key spots in this schedule that are going to absolutely test how good this team is and how resilient they are in their ability to bounce back. Opening with Dallas, then going to Arizona, whatever, but it's back-to-back road games. At Arizona, then out west again at the Niners.
Short week.
Yep. On a Thursday, correct. Then
they're probably going to stay in Phoenix that week.
They have to. And then they'll host Seattle, but then it's back-to-back AFC East opponents, Miami and Buffalo, who everyone expects to both be playoff teams. Washington is never easy. The Jets are improved. They have to come to Vegas. I think the Raiders stink, but it's coming off that Jets game. Who knows what you're getting with going to Dallas coming the next week after Vegas. Then they go to Washington.
3 straight road games there.
It is
November.
an absolutely brutal schedule. And as always, you're closing 2 of your final 3 against Philly. Sure, you get to sandwich the Rams in the middle there, but New Orleans is not going to be easy, and Green Bay is a wild card. I think this is an 8 to 9 win team. That's how it feels to me.
It's a well-set line. And I think, honestly, I think the better value is for them to make the playoffs at plus 160.
And I think
because you're getting the plus price, whereas you can coin flip a lot of these games, but you're getting a coin flip price to the over. Whereas if the coin comes your direction, you're getting plus 160 on that price. If they win 9 games, they're making the playoffs in the NFC, and maybe even 8. What was the final wildcard spot in the NFC last year? How many wins was that spot? I would be shocked if it was more than 9. I think 9 was probably the ceiling. So you're getting an extra win. You have to win 9 games instead of 8 for you to win that bet, but you're getting plus 160.
Seahawks.
Yeah.
And the Giants went 9-7-1.
Shameful, Dustin. Are you on the ropes and playing the okie doke game right now? Like letting us punch let the rest of the league punch itself out, and then the Giants sneak into the postseason, and you can secretly be happy.
No,
shameful.
No, I think they're going to make the playoffs, but I just think the schedule is like it did them no favors. There's back-to-back road games, then home for 1. Back-to-back road games, home for 2, and one of them's the Jets. 3 on the road. And then New England and a bye. Like
technically, you lose a home game too, because that Jets game is not a home game.
Yes.
It's neutral.
Yeah, there's no advantage.
Say it's a neutral. None.
So,
0.
I just think the schedule is gonna be what does this team in. Again, they're gonna be better. They're gonna play better. They're gonna be a lot more fun. I just don't like the way this thing sets up. And last year, you got to remember the schedule a year ago. They opened with a win over the Titans.
Yep.
No one thought the Titans would be as bad as they were. Then they beat Carolina. No one thought, well, people were iffy on Carolina. People talked themselves into them. Then they got to beat the Bears. They somehow beat the Ravens, which was the big shocker. They beat at Jacksonville.
The Packers won in London was big.
And then they ran, yes. And
that was when I was like, wow, this team actually knows how to close out games. From a betting perspective, I would just bet them week 1 against the Cowboys. If they lose that game, I bet them on the money line. If they lose that game, you might get a 7 or a 6.5 on the win total in season. To me, that's how I think I would play it.
I know it's a brutal, and I like the plus 160 postseason. I wouldn't even mess with that 7.5. But I know it's a brutal division. But are you both all caps, that high on the Cowboys this year?
Yes.
I understand sacrilege to talk about the Cowboys negatively on this network.
I'm on the fence on Dallas. I just don't trust Dak long term. Yeah, I don't trust Dak long term, but I think the roster's good.
I think the Cowboys are going to end up winning the division.
I think the roster's really good. It's just a matter of Dak's. They're obviously overvalued in the market, but we're talking about in relation to the Giants. I think they're better than the Giants right now. I do.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.